Hey, welcome to my stream here. It's been quite a day, and I thought I should hop on and talk a little bit about what's been going on. We got the electoral vote count being done, and that raid on the Capitol building. It's just craziness. I mean, it was something that couldn't ultimately result really in any change in who's going to be in charge, but it seemed certainly like some people thought it might, or we're doing some sort of riot protest thing. But it's totally crazy thing to see, to have people doing this, smashing windows and I mean attacking police officers. It's not clear to me what even they hope to accomplish, and I don't know that it was. It's one of those things that almost seems to me like people got riled up to and this negative energy and anger at the Capitol, anger at perceived slights and everything, and then it's just like a match getting thrown on gasoline, and this is the result. And I don't know if there were leaders. There's been talk of there were people in charge, but it's not clear who and what. And this is one of those things where, like a lot of other news stories, we have to give it time to really see what happened and who talked to who and where the idea came from, and if there's coordination or if this is just one of those random, random riots that just because it was at the Capitol and was the crowd was populated by people that have been incited to be very angry at our government and our government processes right now, lashed out in a very organic way. Unfortunately, I've heard that it may not have been organic, that it may have been coordinated by people. And I hope that's not the case. I hope this really is something where it just kind of got out of hand on its own. I'd hate to think that there were American citizens that did this with the intended purpose of really trying to overturn our government, and trying to do that. But it's we'll just have to wait and see kind of what the news reporting bears out and what information we gain in the coming days and weeks. Honestly, one of the things that's something that's going on. Of course, the Electoral College Vote is going on right now. I actually have another YouTuber that I was following earlier, a guy named Cristo something. What's his name? Cristo Aviles or something. He's a good YouTuber, but he's been following like all the votes in the Senate and the House right now, where they go and they're doing the votes for the Senate and for the House, whether not to challenge electoral votes in various states. They're on Arizona right now. I think it's in alphabetical order, so they're just getting started. It's going to be a long night for them. And people are getting up there and giving speeches, and some of them are kind of directly and short and to the point. Other ones are kind of bloviating, speeches where people are trying to get airtime, and they know it's on television, so they give them big, long speeches to kind of get some shine on themselves and get some fame. But ultimately, it's the votes are going on. I'm disappointed to see that in the House, a majority of Republicans are actually voting in favor of contesting the votes. Now, here's the thing. A lot of the House and Senate Republicans have tried to talk like contesting, they just want an investigation, or they're just not sure about things. But understand, when you reach this point where they are verifying the electoral ballots of the electoral votes from the states, it's either accept the votes or don't accept them. And the only end point of this is either Joe Biden is confirmed as the president-elect and gets inaugurated, or his electoral vote count is reduced below 270, and the vote goes to the House and to the Senate to theoretically place Donald Trump as president. That's the only alternative to what's happening now. There's no, we're going to say no to electoral votes and then go back and run elections again. That's not an option. The option is accept that Joe Biden is the duly elected next president of the United States, or replace him with Donald Trump. Those are the only two options. So all these people, all these Republicans voting to not certify results, are voting for Donald Trump to remain president. They don't say it that way. And honestly, a lot of it's really, in truth, a virtue signal to his people to say, hey, I'm on your side, because they know it's not going to work. They know they don't have the House, so there's no real consequence. So they're just virtue signaling to conservatives, and to Trump in particular conservatives, saying, hey, Trump supporters, I'm your guy. So after he's gone and I'm up for election next, I'm your guy to vote for. That's really what's going on with these votes. It's not really they actually want to overturn it. I think a few of them, Actually, none of them, because here's the thing. They know that Donald Trump helped incite what happened at the Capitol today. So it's hard for me to imagine any of them actually want Donald Trump to still be president. Most of them probably don't like someone like that who bullies people, who will turn on you in a hot second the moment nobody wants to deal with someone like that as president, but they're trying to get those votes. And so that's what a lot of what's going on here to me is and those are a lot of the guys giving the long speeches where they're in there talking about, oh, blah, blah, blah. This is important, giving these long 4, 5, 6, 7 minute speeches. Those are the ambitious guys, the guys that are trying to, like Josh Hawley, like Matt Gaetz. Those are two in particular. I heard their speeches, and Matt Gaetz actually tried to blame BLM somehow for this. I mean, his speech was crazy. But these guys are trying. This is their time to shine and get an opportunity to try to do some of this stuff. So they're doing that. What's more interesting to me actually right now, I mean, that's going to play out. The vote's going to get done. Biden's going to get confirmed. That's what's going to happen with the electoral votes. What's more interesting to me right now, and that's why the beginning of the title of this stream is about the 25th Amendment, is that there's real grumblings from inside the White House that the 25th Amendment may be triggered. Part of the, one of the first things that happened that kind of indicated that was that Vice-President Mike Pence was reportedly either the person responsible for ordering the National Guard finally coming into the Capitol to assist in matters, or he had to convince Trump to do it. Now, I saw a tweet from a journalist saying that Pence's chief of staff has been banned from the White House. Can't get confirmation from that. But in the meanwhile, there are two calls coming out right now from members of the House and the Senate, generally Democrats. One is a call for impeachment. I think Ilhan Omar did a call for impeachment. And then there have also been calls for invoking of the 25th Amendment. Those are interesting because they're kind of two different, it's kind of a good and bad on both things. So with the 25th Amendment, all it takes is the majority of the cabinet and Mike Pence to do it. So it's easier to do. And this short period of time seems much more feasible to get accomplished and actually remove Trump, get the nuclear codes away from him, and kind of minimize his ability to anymore exacerbate these kind of things occurring in the Capitol around the country. The other thing, though, is impeachment, you would think, would be like, how are you going to do this in 14 days? It seems unlikely that would work, but some Republicans like the idea for this reason. If Donald Trump is impeached and then convicted by the Senate, where there are a lot of guys who like to run for president, like Mitt Romney, Ted Lieu, Josh Hawley, if they if they impeach and convict him, he can't run for office again. So that would be a way to permanently sideline him from politics, at least in terms of actually having any more power again. So there's some people saying that actually might get more pushed by Republicans than the 25th Amendment. I mean, you could kind of do both, to be honest, though. You could literally do 25th Amendment and then also impeach him. But that's why an impeachment and conviction could possibly happen, because certainly all the Democrats would impeach him and convict him in the Senate. I mean, you have the impeachment numbers already. But certainly in the Senate, you could get the Democrats. So all you need is, I think, 17 Republicans. And he'd get convicted, and he never could be president again. Because as I did in one of my videos, he is going to run again. If he's not dead or in jail, he will be running for president. And he's already made a whole bunch of money for his next campaign off of his supposed legal defense fund that mostly went to the RNC or to his election coffers. That was a hustle. I never got a chance to do a video about that, but that was all a big scam. Most of the money didn't go to his lawyers, who most of whom probably haven't been paid and maybe going to jail or at least censored for frivolous lawsuits. So I'm trying to pull up to the top. A couple of different Congress people like Cicely from Rhode Island. We've got a bunch of different people. I'm trying to catch up with them here. We got 17 Democrats already talking about 25th Amendment. We've got Mitch McConnell's wife, who is the who's the head of the Department of Transportation, is talking about there's word that she might resign. And then a lot of people coming back and saying, well, she shouldn't resign. She should support the 25th Amendment removal. That resigning actually is more so, the easy way out. And actually, what you should do is actually go for the support the 25th Amendment to get this guy out of power right away, because obviously his rhetoric has had dangerous and consequential results. Yes, and so Now CNN's reporting just pretty recently that GOP leaders think Trump should be removed from office either by 25th Amendment or impeachment. Because that's the thing. All these politics are well and good until there are guys burgeoning inside the Capitol with armed men. Then it all becomes a little bit more real to, especially people like Republicans who might want to downplay generally the toxic kind of rhetoric that Trump likes to use when it comes to this election. And but now, you see something like this, you see those guys bashing in windows and going into offices, and like that comes right to your front door. Sometimes it makes you think twice about what you're pushing for. Let's see here. One thing I like is one of my favorite new Congress people, Cori Bush, is pushing to actually have some members of the House expelled, saying that they are violating their oath to the Constitution by their support of various after the report of what happened. It's hard to find her statement, but she was talking about actually removing from office, saying they violated their oath to the Constitution. I thought that was interesting that she tried to do that. I thought that was interesting. They actually removed Trump from Twitter, or removed some of his tweets and suspended his account for 12 hours. I'm like, I thought he had some special exception because he was the commander in chief, but that was just a rule that Twitter made up for themselves. The moment stuff gets crazy, well, suddenly we got different rules, and we can just suspend his whenever we want, and we can turn his tweets off and do whatever we want. Like, that's fine, but that makes it look like your other rules were artificial and you can really do whatever you want, which is what the truth is. Twitter is problematic in that way. Trying to find anything more about the 25th Amendment call, because there's several people that have come out. The House Judiciary wrote a letter to to Vice-President Pence asking him to actually invoke the 25th Amendment. It was signed by, I think, by Ted Lieu. Ted Lieu is another guy, Sheila Jackson Lee, all representatives, Lucy McBath, Jamie Raskin, Eric Swalwell, Stanton Cori Bush, Pramila Jayapal, Ted Douche, Steve Cohen, Jerry Nadler, David Cicilline. That's the guy name I was trying to think. David Cicilline, Sylvia Garcia, Mary Gay Scanlon. I mean, I think it might be all the members. I think this is all the members. These are all the Democrats, but I think some of these might be Republicans too. But yeah, they wrote a bill. They wrote a letter to him saying you need to invoke the 25th Amendment. Yeah, it's all. Unfortunately, it's only all Democratic. I was hoping it was all members, but it's all Democratic members. Yeah. So, wow. What a crazy day. Oh wow, this is another big thing. So the White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, was urging White House officials not to speak to Trump or enable his coup attempt in any way, so they could reduce the chance he could be persecuted for treason under the Sedition Act. So he's telling all of them not to talk to Trump. I mean, it looks like Trump inside the White House is talking crazy, because everything, they're basically telling everybody not to talk to him, not to do anything he says. I mean, this is almost like they already have the 25th Amendment and everything but actually invoking it. I mean, some people thought they might have already invoked the 25th Amendment, as I said, because those reports, Pence is the one who's ordering the National Guard to come into the city. I mean, he shouldn't be doing that. It should be the president doing that. But then another report was saying that he just convinced Trump to do it. But you've got the White House counsel telling people not to talk to Donald Trump, not to do what he says, because they might get prosecuted for treason or sedition. That's wild talk. I mean, what's going on here? This is, as I said, these are interesting times. We're living through history right now. This is a day that will be talked about for decades. But as I mentioned earlier, there's a letter that was sent by all the Democratic members of the Judiciary Committee to invoke the 25th Amendment. We got several members of the cabinet that have leaked word that they might consider resigning. To that, some people said don't resign, get him out of office, help get the 25th Amendment thing going. I mean, that was legitimately reported by a news source that there's several members of Trump's cabinet in discussions, but ultimately they had to get Pence on board to make that happen. And the thing is, because I think the process takes 30 days, if you invoke it, Congress only has to let him challenge it after 30 days. So once it runs its course, he'll be out of office. And so it essentially would get him in his presidency if Pence invoked the 25th Amendment. So that's trying to think of anything else here. So there's not a whole lot more news besides that. We've got and that's the one thing I'm waiting for. I was waiting for some Republicans to actually sitting Republicans actually go on the record saying they support impeachment. There's word that some do and that their votes for it, but now they're downplaying some of the reporting on the 25th Amendment. So it may have been more of just not you can call it fake news, but it's kind of like it's more so it might be among staffers rather than actual members of the cabinet. I think that report about Mitch McConnell's wife wanting to resign is true, though. I think that really is happening, and she probably will by tomorrow. I think there's some of the people resigning. I think that will happen. I think there was a national security head, something like that. I wish I could find that one. But there's reports of several members of his cabinet talking about resigning at the very least. Man, this is something else. Trump 25th. Yeah, so it's called. Wow. Now, here's the thing. One thing that's not clear about this, I'll stop talking too long, I guess. People left the stream. But one thing that's not clear about this is whether or not 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate have to approve of the invoking of the 25th Amendment at the time of the invoking. I thought it was within 30 days, and that Pence could invoke it. As long as he had half the cabinet, Pence could invoke it. And then once he invoked it, they had 30 days, when Trump objected to it, there'll be 30 days before the invoking would have to be either approved or not approved by the House and the Senate. Some people are saying that impeachment is easier because it requires fewer people in the House or the Senate, in the House at least, to approve of it. But I think the removal would happen right away. You wouldn't wait for the approval to happen. See, to the 25th Amendment, the idea is that the president's has a heart attack or loses his mind. You can't say, oh, he gets to stay president for a few days while Congress and the Senate figure it out, and then we'll take the nuclear codes away from him. My understanding is it happens immediately. And then maybe even if the proceedings start right away, you're going to have the people, the Congress having to discuss it and debate and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, the vice president would be in charge. So there's some vagaries about whether or not the 25th Amendment would be appropriate in this case or work in this case. It seems to me that it would, that you would at least get some time, several days before you would get any kind of vote from the House or the Senate to address it, because it happens right away. And the president VP takes over right away. It doesn't wait for Congress to decide the VP is okay. And impeachment will take several days to vote on too. So if you're talking about right now, the next day or two, it seems like you have to invoke it. Maybe then you also impeach. So then since the vote's easier in the House, but I don't know. I kind of think you would get 2/3 in both houses too. Because I think a lot of Republicans want to take this opportunity to separate themselves from Donald Trump. And I think there's a combination of people that are probably just shook that there were armed people outside or inside the Capitol. And then there's also people that they really never wanted to be with Trump, but they're just too much of cowards to separate themselves from him until it's politically convenient. Now he's lost his election. It's a little more convenient, especially in this way. And with this action happening, it does hurt his chances in 2024 because, I mean, they really might impeach him and keep him from being able to even run for president in 4 years. So, wow, this is, yeah, I think they can run. Yeah, some people think the 25th Amendment can run the clock out, and the House and Senate can wait to vote until it's over and it's a non-factor. That'd also be an easier way for Republicans because they wouldn't really have to vote on it yet. So that way you can kind of let them protect themselves if they want. And yeah, see, Forbes.com was reporting cabinet members in discussions to remove Trump. So that is reported. So I knew that was. But see, nobody's going on the record. That's the thing. That's disappointing to me, even after all this. Yeah, see, this is, of course, reported by Forbes. Under Section 4 of the 25th Amendment, the Vice President and the Cabinet can agree that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office and remove him from power immediately. If Trump's Cabinet declares that, Pence immediately assumes the role of President and remains, even if Trump decides to take up legal process to retake power, as that process would take time. And then, Trump objects, and then the Vice President and the majority of the Cabinet can then formally object to the President's claim, keeping power with the Vice President, according to legal scholars Brian Kalt and David Posen. Congress would then have 48 hours to assemble and 21 days to decide whether to permanently strip the president of powers, which will require at least 2/3 majority. So yeah, he has 21, you got 24 days. If they invoke the 25th Amendment, the president has 24 days. I mean, you have 24 days before before Trump would even necessarily even get a vote in Congress. So there's no reason why. So the 25th Amendment actually is the more practical way of removing him if that's what Congress wants to do. Impeachment is a delay. It's more permanent because if you impeach and convict the president, he can't ever run for president ever again. He may not be able to serve office in any capacity again, but at least he can't be president. And as I was saying earlier, I think some Republicans like Ted Cruz would actually like the idea of potentially, he probably wouldn't vote for it though. I don't know. I think it's iffy whether or not Ted Cruz would go for it, but some of them might want to run for. I think more the centrists like Romney would want to vote for it to get him out in a way that would not let him contest in 2024. So I think I could see both of those happening. I kind of think the House is going to move forward if the 25th is not invoked in the next day or 2 or 3, something like that. I think the House probably will move forward with impeachment in order to go ahead and start getting those wheels rolling, even though by the time he's convicted, he'll be out of office in 5 or 6 days. But I think that it's still value to it from their point of view, because if he's convicted, it would actually get him out of office and in a way that would not let him ever run again. And I think there's certainly members of plenty of Democrats and even some Republicans that would like the idea of permanently keeping Donald Trump from being president again by convicting him in the Senate. So they may want to do that, but at the very least, I think the House will impeach him if if Pence does not move forward with the 25th Amendment. So we'll see what's going to happen. That was good. That's good information. I really wanted to have that because there's a back and forth on Twitter about whether or not the 25th made sense. Based on this Forbes reporting that seems to have some legal scholars backing it up, the 25th does make sense to do. So that's what is going on there. It looks like that they might be reconvening by now, the House and the Senate, to talk about to vote on additional. Yes. So I'm still here. I just saw something else. Another kind of new progressive that just joined the House, Mondaire Jones, called for impeachment, expulsion, and invocation of the 25th Amendment. I think Ilhan Omar did, AOC did, Ted Lieu, David Cicilline from Rhode Island. They also found pipe bombs at the DNC and the RNC. That's another small thing that happened that nobody's even, because there's so many big things going on, nobody's talking about. But those buildings were evacuated. Those offices were evacuated because actually they found pipe bombs there. Wow, 4 people have died from the Capitol occupation. 1 woman was shot by police, and then 3 had medical emergencies. Ed Markey of the Senate just called for impeachment and prosecution and the abolition of the Electoral College, which I'm all for. I think each of us should have an equal right or equal vote for the presidency. The Electoral College doesn't do that. Only a popular vote would do that. Give us all equal vote for president, because it's all our country equally at the federal level. Oh man, somebody retweeted Trump's tweet about big protests in DC on January 6th. Be there, it will be wild. That tweet didn't age well. Let's see here. Is anything else interesting? Okay, so it looks like we've got the Arizona electoral votes challenge has been voted down. I think they got 6 senators and unfortunately like 120 Republicans to vote for it, but those are minorities, obviously, in both chambers. And so they're moving forward to they're moving forward with the votes for the some other states. They're doing alphabetical order, I think. So Arizona's first. They're going to go through a whole bunch that nobody will challenge, and then they'll get to some of the other ones that they'll want to challenge, like I'm assuming Pennsylvania, because that's Josh Hawley's one. And I love this. I was watching the video. I was watching the discussions earlier, and the Senate was talking about Arizona, but Josh Hawley in the Senate, he got up there and was talking, made some points about Pennsylvania. One of the senators from Pennsylvania got up and refuted every single one of his points. He said, no, the Constitution of Pennsylvania does not prevent mail ballot voting. This stuff was this bill that was passed by the legislature that allowed mail-in ballots for other reasons was passed last year, and nobody said anything about it. And it had its day in court, and the challenge to it had its day in court. And it's like he just shot it all down. It was beautiful. I appreciate that. Like when senators can get up there and eloquently make their point, and that's debate. That's what the Senate's about. And Holly got up there talking reckless, and the Pennsylvania guy said, this is insulting my state. I'm from here. I know my state's politics. Let me break down why what he said is all false. And he did, and it was very convincing. So I really appreciated that. Let me see. Yeah, 121 actually House Republicans. I saw 120, but I think I missed the last one. Yeah, and the woman that died, people are now looking at her Twitter feed and they're finding out, so you got stuff about the Trump boat parade and QAnon. And I shouldn't have said that because I'll probably get me flagged on YouTube now, I guess. That happens. I'm a very small YouTuber, so that hasn't happened to me yet. So maybe that'll slip by and then we'll notice and I won't get flagged. I don't know. But that happened, and also conspiracy theories and stuff. So yeah, that's filing under the obvious news of the day. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna close it up now. I appreciate I had about 10 or 11 people over time join this broadcast, and I appreciate everybody for coming here. Consider subscribing, and with notifications on. I talk about important events of the day. I'm a little small YouTuber. I'm just a guy. My basis is in grassroots politics and learning how to be citizen lobbyists, and everybody needs to be involved in our democracy and the way our government works. It's not meant to be other people, some elite class, some dukes and duchesses, as Dave Chappelle called them. It's supposed to be us, and we're supposed to stay engaged as citizens, all year, every year. That's what democracy takes, and it's hard. And I think that some generations just past didn't do a great job and have let this government kind of go astray and serve smaller interests and not the wider interests of all everyday Americans. So I hope you'll tune into some of my other videos, and maybe I'll stream again sometime. I got a few viewers, so that was great. And thanks for watching. I gotta find the button. I gotta find another button to press. Now I'm gone. Now I mean it.